magical friends. This is B from Sorcery Soap and Hocus Pocus Crafts. And I have Herb with me today. He is a plant creature that we bought as a Christmas tree for ourselves a few years ago. And he's been great. I'm so happy that he survived. I had one in the past that somehow I ended up not helping to survive. So that makes me really happy. I'm gonna get to it because I have a few things I want to cover today. And I said in a couple videos that I want to give away a stack of books. This is the set of all the soap dough books and the very big one. So this is an Enchanted book of peculiar ideas and soap potions. This one right here, that was the first one. And then, I'm not sure what order, the Magic of Soap Dough, right here, this one. And 2 books on soap recipes / soap dough recipes. And lots of places to write in there and keep notes and very detailed recipes. And then this one with all the inspirational concepts and ideas, but no writing in here, okay? So anyway, today, before I get to what I wanted to say, I'm gonna do my work, which is I wanted to read to you out of the Magic of Soap Dough, and then we're gonna see where that goes because I have some ideas that I wanna share, but we'll see what happens. And I'll just open a page and see. Oh, okay, here we go. So this is on page 29 and it says Soap Dough Insights. Avoid sticky dough. Before rolling the soap dough, treat it like cookie dough using cornstarch to dust the top of your workspace and the dough itself. Wipe your rolling pin off frequently. Don't hesitate to stop your task and wash your hands. Soap dough will stick to your hands and small pieces of dried soap will stick to your hands and tools. Even the best soap dough will stick a little bit. I know, I've said this before, but it bears repeating. These small pieces will dry quickly and add lumps to your smooth soap dough. Depending on the shape of your cookie cutter or tool, either spritz the tool with 91% rubbing alcohol or dust with cornstarch. Alcohol comes in handy to loosen the soap from the cookie cutter or fondant plunger. Use a small sculpting tool to move the soap cookie from the corners to move the soap cookie from the corners of the cookie cutter. Here, I'll read that again. Use a small sculpting tool to move the soap cookie from the corners of the cookie cutter. Fondant plungers will push the soap out in one motion, leaving an impression on the soap. So, and then I'll read one more little passage because I'm going to read the whole page. Now stick it together. This is the one big question that I get asked often is how do you get things to stick? How do I stick my soap dough together? This is the most frequently asked question. Oh, I said that already. Wet, uncured soap sticks with success to each other. Wet or slightly cured soap will stick if the surface is roughed up. Scoring and cross-hatching the 2 parts of soap when wetted with water and then pushing the soap together at a slightly sticky consistency can make the parts cure together. The surface will be unlocked. The crystalline structure has been opened and will lock again in the capacity you direct. Cured soaps are more difficult. Are you seeing the reason why yet? Because they don't have enough water. The crystalline structure of the molecules lined up are void of water and are now locked together. So that is kind of an interesting statement right there. So if you take 2 pieces of dried soap and put them together without any water, they generally don't stick together. So I asked myself the question, how do I get soap to stick to each other? Because that would free up, oh, let me put my glasses on. That would free up a lot of creative ideas for myself. And I observed that if I put 2 pieces of soap in the shower that are wet and I just lay them on top of each other, they're almost impossible to pull apart. Not saying that they are impossible, but they are almost impossible. And I thought, well, how could I make them stick? And so while I was in the shower, I scratched it with my nail and scratched the other side and then put them together. And then I realized that I'm disturbing these two, offering water to re-stick them, and then putting them together. But the key is to let them dry. They have to completely dry, because if they're just a little bit wet, you can just pop it right off. So I find that interesting. That's an observable truth, an observable reality. I don't have a degree in that soap dough stuff, but I can figure some stuff out. And I think there's a lot of other people on this planet that are in the same position, that can observe a reality and they don't need a degree. And I don't have a degree in nutrition, although I fixed my own nutrition. Shocking, shocking. And I had many health issues that prompted me to do those things. So I have a couple things I'd like to lay out. I wanted to let you know that I'm very excited to announce that I just did the numbers and found 12,000 homes for these books. So I'm being prudent in what I say here, because I want the magical people that follow me and that need to find me to still find me without sticking my head above the parapet. So I tread really lightly and be as careful as I can about what I say here. So if it sounds a little confusing, just give it a think and you probably figure it out. I don't think I'm that complicated, but you never know. Anyway, so yeah, so that's a big deal. So I started reconsidering my life lately. I'm sure like a lot of you. And you can clearly see, if you followed along for any time or any length of time, that Sorcery Soap has changed. It's changed over the years. And that's because it is a part of me and that I adapt. I am in a constant state of adaptation to things that I find useful, helpful, and just. And so we've adapted and acquired another version of ourselves, which is called Hocus Pocus Crafts. And that is, I've been asking over and over, like, what is this? Because I trust my guidance. I trust unshakably the unseen forces that guide me. And that is without connection to any religion or any of the labels that you would label your identity with, because I feel like that starts to hinder it. And I don't want to be put in a category of, this or that or whatever. So I float above the others. I float above all the labels. That's what I mean by the others. So this is a good point, and I am really glad I trusted reading in the Magic of Soap Dough book, because how do I come up with this stuff? How do I think about things that other people may have thought about but didn't take action on? How did I do that? And it's because I really trust in who I've become, not who I was necessarily, but who I've become based on all the house cleaning I've done, which is to dig into myself and to figure out who I really am. And I don't know that I've come to the end of that journey, except to say that what was the one key thing that helped me understand who I am, and when I boiled it all down, it was writing. And there is a magic in writing. And I have been writing my whole life, and I wonder, so I've come up with this idea, or been blessed with it, I don't know. But anyway, so I've created a ton of journals to hopefully inspire you to write. So one of the things I'm going to do with giving this away, and I'm glad I waited, I'm really fair, so I'll go pick and put names from the other video into a hat, along with some other ones, and then draw to see where we are with the whole situation. And I'll do my best to give more than I initially said. But I want to give a journal because I want to have some writing time with you in the future, and that is if you're attracted to it. Obviously, don't do anything you're repelled by, and because I want to help you get to writing, because I think there is so much magic in writing and how it's changed my life, like for the better, so many times. Not just with publishing books. That is an end result of a lot of toil and hard work and trusting my guidance. And it can, on a day-to-day basis, it changes my life for the better. It has transformed my life. Here's my day-to-day journal. This is my newest journal, which I just got. I created this particular journal for myself, and it is so much better in person than I even anticipated. I'm so pleased with it. My husband has a journal. I want to order some more journals, and I just needed to, get my feet wet and see where I stood with it and how it felt when I got it. And I'll order more. I want to give some journals away. We have the little journals and the big journals, and they all, like, I try to make a little journal and a big journal of the same design so that you have a choice. So with all that said, this is how I want to explain to you why writing has changed my life and why I want to talk to you about that and move forward with it. So in my books, one of the things I did, and I didn't really understand what I was doing at the time, but let me collect my thoughts for a second, because, I do all this at one time, and I edit a little bit, but not very much. And the reason I do that is because I want you to know that I'm a person. So, I'm remembering that you're magical, and I'm remembering now that you can comprehend what I have to say. And so in my recipe books, I explain a lot, but I also have places in here to write your notes and little note cards in here that you can tear out and cut up so that you can label your soaps. And at the time I was like, well, I wonder why I was doing that, because not everybody likes to write, but I don't see other humans as simpletons. And writing is a key, and I think it's an observable key to understanding the self. Putting your words down, being able to collect your words and put them down in a way that you can reread them at a future date, leaving clues for yourself, or commenting on your life. Or one of the things we've incorporated into our world most recently is, we call it AAR, which is After Actions Report. So at the end of every day, my husband and I get together and we talk about our pros and cons, what we could do better, and our selfless acts. And that helps to sort of bring to the foreground what kind of people we are in the world. And it helps us take our own inventory. And then we ask for feedback if the other one wants feedback. And it helps establish boundaries. But writing it down is a self-talk that is different than thinking. And it's very different than speaking. And speaking can muddy the waters oftentimes. So the other day we were walking, because we walk every day. We were walking, we're having this little chat about something, and it didn't, just being inspired and talking about journaling and how it's benefited us, and the insights that we've gained, and he said something very profound, and it just flowed out of him. And he takes a little notebook so we could write things down. And he pulled out his notebook. I go, oh, write that down. He pulled out his notebook. Do you know neither one of us could conjure what he just said? And I was like, the forgetting has landed on us. I mean, that's kind of crazy that we just spoke it, we witnessed it, and we couldn't remember it. And so that takes practice. I know I've had tons of great ideas in my shower dreaming time, and I come out, and by the time I dry myself, I can't remember. So, all that said, here's the other part that I wanted to mention, is that there has to be, sometimes when things are a little bit wonky, and they feel, oh, it doesn't feel quite balanced, it needs to go in a different direction and be imbalanced in another direction. And here's my example of that. I have two examples, actually. Imbalance isn't completely wrong, I don't think. I think that there's okay to be imbalanced. So imagine a person who has lived on fast food their whole life, and they say to the person who is fit and healthy, oh, you can't live on keto your whole life, that'll ruin your health. And keto just means carb-free, essentially. High fat, protein, no carbs. And it's keeping a monitor of your own blood sugar so that you know you don't spike your blood sugar, because high blood sugar increases your insulin and causes inflammation and a host of other problems. So I'm not going to get into it because, anyway. And they say, oh, you can't do that because that's imbalanced. But then on reflection, eating fast food that's corporate food. That's all man-made processed food. But, you know, I eat eggs, meat, some cheese. So there has to be another, so from one realm, it appears imbalanced. From another realm, it appears the opposite realm is imbalanced. I'm not here to say who's right or wrong. That's not my goal in life. My goal is to say, this is how I did it. I invite you to do it this way and tell me what you think. And I feel like I've taken that stance my whole life. At least I've tried to take that stance. I'm imperfect. However, I felt so compelled to share this with you that as I was thinking about sharing all this with you this morning in the shower, I felt, oh, it's so clear. I'm so clear. I could just like get it out of me and say it to you. And I started writing notes, and it's transformed. Even to this moment, it's transformed into a way that I didn't expect. I have, you know, points that I want to share with you. So this is me muddling along, doing my best, my own imperfect best. And I want to sort of circle back around to the Sorcery Soap. It's not as if I'm going to give up on soap. I like making handmade soap, and I like making the way I make soap with flowers and things on it. It's just that I feel like I did what I was asked to do with the soap dough. And in the beginning, it was really scary, and I wasn't quite as secure in my beingness as I am now. I mean, when I first started this is 10 years ago, and I was coming out of a very dark time, and I didn't even know really what I was about or with the soap stuff, but it felt right. And I prayed every day, and I meditated and meditated, and I did a lot of things in order to be clear about it. And it just came so easily. It was almost like I dictated it, because I was like, oh yes, this is right, you know, and I just worked on it and continued to tweak and hone and all that stuff. And it's not like I just woke up one day and say, oh, I'm gonna write a book. I've been writing my whole life. I went through 5 years where I wrote daily. I took classes, I went to college, I studied with other professors, I submitted my work to literary agencies, which that is a huge blow to the ego. Good, because, you know, I don't need my ego. My personality is okay, I think, but my ego, shadow work, doing it right now, everything, every day, doing the shadow work to try and keep that at bay, because that is that evil editor that comes in my head and tells me I'm not good enough. I mean, how dare it, really, to tell me I'm fine. I'm not great, but it's fine. Because I wake up, I'm neutral until I start to hear that. I think everybody has that. I think that's the job of every being on this planet, is to fight against those tendencies. But that's another topic for another day. So when I went through this whole process, and it was quite transformational, because there's a lot of people saying no. And I know you've heard some of this before, but there's a lot of people saying no. And so I reflected on that, saying, no, you can't do that. You can't touch soap that soon. You can't this, you can't that. And I was like, that doesn't even make any sense. And why can't they see what I am seeing? And so I journaled a lot. And one of the things I did in the beginning of Sorcery Soap was I blogged a lot. And I have almost 400 blogs now up. And that takes a long time. But that was part of my soap journaling and putting it out there and giving my thoughts. And that was the preface. That was the beginning of the very first book, because I'd been writing. So I had lots of material already and things I hadn't even published before. And mostly it wasn't asking for approval, but putting it out to the world and saying, does this frequency fit somewhere? Because that's more important to me than getting approval. I'm not interested in the approval part. I've been the sticky up nail most of my life. So I see something that I don't agree with, and then I say it, even gently or gracefully, not always, but I say it, and then somebody drops a hammer on me. And if you've experienced this, that would be interesting to know, although it's quite delicate topic. So here's the other story. There's two other stories I would really like to tell you in this particular session. So, yes, and normal people say when they're thinking. That's just the way it is. So, I'm going to tell you one story real quick. When I was 32, I was told I had cancer. That C word might get me kicked off, by the way. By somebody I respected, doctor, from some blood work I had. And the details don't matter. I might even touched on it in the past. The details don't really matter. But I dug into it. And the common theory is that it's genetic. I largely disagree with that idea. And when she told me, she cried. Overall, I appeared healthy. And she was devastated by this news. And it was the first time in her young doctor career that she'd ever had to give this kind of news. And I was actually quite stoic about it, and I was like, okay, well, what's the next step? And she said, well, we should do more blood work. And I go, okay, when can we do that? And she goes, you have to wait 2 weeks. Can't do it right now. And in the meantime, she gave me some suggestions. And I went home, and I thought about it. And I said, that's not true. And it wasn't just a think. I mean, I meditated. I've been meditating for a long time. I prayed on it. For me, prayer isn't asking God anything. For me, prayer is having a conversation with myself. So I ask myself questions, and then I wait for the answer to see what is true for me. So contemplation is a little different for me. Contemplation is, I'm going to consider this from all angles. That's, to me, contemplation. So anyway, so I get home and I deal with this, right? It isn't like my life was freaking perfect by any stretch. Struggling. Did just move to Sedona, like that year. So it was a big deal. So back to the balance and imbalance. So I happened to live next to somebody who worked at a C clinic. And they were very upset that this news came. I told my neighbors what happened because I was friends with the woman who was about my age next door. And she was like, this isn't right, this isn't gonna happen, blah. And anyway, everybody was like up in arms, and I was like grateful they gave crap about me. That was pretty cool. And so they gave me some ideas what to do, and I'm not gonna tell you what they are because it doesn't matter. Anybody on the path is gonna find their own way. This is what I did. So what I did is get rid of everything, food-wise, because that's one thing I can change. And everybody says, oh, nutrition isn't connected. Really, that's what fuels you. So to say that, therein lies a lie to me. So nutrition isn't connected, but it matters if you smoke. Nutrition isn't connected, but it matters what you take into your body. It's a hypocritical idea, and I'm not going to get into that at the moment, but I am quite passionate that it does matter. And so I saw this for what it was, and I was like, number one, it's not true for me. I'm not going to take it on. I don't care. I'm not going to take it on. And I'm not going to play their game. So I did what I needed to do to fix myself. Now, that was when I'm going to be 59 this year. I think 59. I always forget. 58 or 59. That was when I was 32. Never once has that ever come up on my radar again. You're not me, I get that. I'm not you. But I'm telling you that part of this uncovering had everything to do with writing. Me writing down my thoughts and being clear with myself. Because just sitting in meditation is one thing. Just praying or talking to myself or asking the powers that be for help or support or whatever, or asking other people, that's just one level. But writing it down, being able to reflect on what my thoughts are, what my feelings are, what my interpretation of the world is, something starts to change in me as I do this. Even just notes, just like write notes down. Because if you start writing notes down, like little sticky notes, eventually you get tired of all these sticky notes and you want to transfer those sticky notes, those clever ideas to someplace, journal, whatever, and then you want to go back and you'll see, I mean, prove me wrong. There we go. Let's just lay that out. Prove me wrong. I'll wait. Because you ever walk down the street and the little dogs yap at you, but they never come? That's generally what happens. Because I've done the work and I've proved it to myself. So it doesn't matter if anybody else, and I'm here. And the other day, that's the other thing, I'm here, which is crazy to think about. I mean, it's just super crazy to think about. So what I did is made that world that told me that story about myself. First of all, I said, not true. So it's not true. Second of all, and granted, I'm making this very short because there's a lot of details. First of all, if I dig into the details, I'll get in big trouble. But there's a lot of details I can't share with you here in this forum. But I made that obsolete, and I continue to make it obsolete for the remainder of, how long I've lived. And I just continue to do that if it is not imperative to my life and it's not going to give me insight. It's not going to give me a clue to what the real magic is on this planet, to what the real magic is inside of me, then I dismiss it. Don't care. And if anybody says a fear-based thing or says prophecy and says, oh, the future, this is what's going to happen, fear, 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 psst, dismissed, out of hand, not interested. It's not part of me. It's not part of my work here. No, I'm not going to buy into the fear at all. And I can tell you, there are many nights I fell asleep and was terrified at 32 after that. I was scared. And I decided I have two choices. Do you see the light flickering? What? That's crazy. Anyway, I have two choices. I can proceed forward with some form of curiosity because you can't be curious and fearful in the same place. That is so weird. I don't even know what's going on. The light is flickering. It's only that one light. Maybe it's going out. I will proceed, even if there are forces that don't want me to say certain things. It's just a story I'm telling myself. I don't know for a fact. Anyway, yeah, you can't proceed without, if you're curious, at least that you know you're not fearful. At least that's how I saw it. So I said, I'm going to do, hang on, let me check this out. Okay, we'll see if it continues to flicker. I've seen weird stuff happen. And I do not subscribe to all of it. I don't make up a story immediately. I tell the story that I want to tell. So the light could just be flickering, or it could be other scene forces. I don't know. But I'm okay with either way. I really am. It doesn't matter to me. I've seen some pretty phenomenal things in this planet that people would like, oh, that's poltergeist, or oh, you're inhabited. And I'm like, nah. Because the same people run out, the same people that'll tell you these stories and be totally convinced about these stories will run out and poison themselves. So I'm like, I'm not really sure about that. Anyway, so where was I? I was scared. That's where I was. I was scared. And I think I was scared that if I bought in to the story they were telling me, which is the they outside of me, that they were telling me, I would be doomed. But I didn't have another story to replace it. So I kept picking a little piece here and there along the way. You know, the other thing I thought this morning in the shower was, I've had a lot of people come at me and throw degrees in my face. And I'm sure you've probably had the same thing. Where they say, oh, but I am a nutritional scientist, or I have this and that insight and education. Doctors don't even get any nutritional education. A little bit, but not really. And I was like, you don't really have as much education as you should? What? That doesn't make sense. So what are you doing? Well, oh, take this pill. Don't fix yourself. Don't dig inside yourself. Don't fix the things. Don't tinker with the things that actually need to be fixed. Just outside. So I got to the point where I said, no more outside stuff. If I'm not generating it, if it's not self-evident truth, I'm not going to listen to you. You're going to have to prove it to me. Because people say to me all the time, right? Oh, this is the way, this is the way. Really? So that's kind of what, now I'm in that position where I say, if you think I'm wrong, prove it. Most people are the barking little dogs, and they won't come and do the work to prove it. And once they do, then you have to ask where their sources are. You have to ask where they ground this information. So I wrote in a blog post, I don't know when it's coming up. It's either out or it's coming out. I don't know when I'll post this video. But I wrote in a blog post. I did write the blog post. I just don't know when I'm going to share it. Okay. So I wrote in a blog post the other day about a moment that I was in judges' chambers, and I think it was like 9 or 10. I don't remember. And he asked me, just him and I, now that would not be acceptable at all, like no attorneys, no parents, nothing, he and I. And he said, because I was up on the stand, I think, at a moment, yeah, was I testifying? I don't know. Anyway, he took me into the judge's chamber and he asked me, do you know the difference between a lie and the truth? And of course I did. Of course. But I dissolved into a pile. I was a bucket of tears. And I couldn't talk. And even a little kid knows the difference. But as adults, somehow, we've lost our way. Maybe not entirely, but my internal guidance could tell me, because I had a conscience. I have a conscience. But now there's so much word sorcery going on that we've lost our way. And we trust our persons, our minds, our beings with somebody who has a degree more than we trust ourselves. And sometimes that might be right, because if you don't want to do the work, then you got to trust somebody. But if you want to do the work and you want to take care of the being, then you have to dig into the being. So this is where we part ways. And I mean you and I, and anybody that follows Sorcery Soap. Because if you're interested in that concept of figuring out who you are on this planet before you perish, then you're interested in digging into the self a bit. And that's not to be self-centered. You have to do a selfless act. Try to do one every day. You have to be generous. Feed the cat that comes around. But it is to focus on self and give self the attention that it needs. You can't give with an empty well. And that's the other thing. That's why I know, although Sorcery Soap will continue, my attention of it has shifted because my well ran dry. I gave and gave and gave, and I lost, and that's okay. Balance, imbalance. I became imbalanced. So this is part of my journey to give back to me. And I hope that I have people come along for the ride, and I hope in all my meanderings, because I hope you feel like we're having a conversation. I hope that's how it feels. That's how I wrote my books. I'm not a corporate, ever. I'm a being entity. And I think it'll be an interesting journey. I'm already excited. I am just like delighted to get up every day again, which for a while there I wasn't. And I had an interesting idea the other day that I was like, what? This just changed my mind. I was listening to Billy Carson. Oh, and I have a couple more things I want to share. I was listening to Billy Carson. He talks about a lot of esoteric things. And one of the things he said is that he was being interviewed by Danica Patrick, I think is how you say her name. Anyway, he was being interviewed by her. And he said that we're destined, or within this lifetime, we used to live a lot longer. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what he said. And he said that now there's like these telomere caps on us, and we're destined to live about 120 years. And maybe other people would interpret that differently, but I interpreted it like this. I was like, what? 120 years? I better take care of this vehicle, because I don't want to end my ride in a decrepit old vehicle, broken all down because I chose sugar over healthy food most of my life. I want to end this vehicle walking, you know. I want to walk. I want to be walking, meditating. I want to be outside or whatever. But that's how I want. That's what I want in this life. I want to be healthy all the way to the end. And people are like, oh no, you always, you know, they'll claim the law of thermodynamics, and you have to break down. I'm like, yeah, I don't agree. Just because it's not marketed, just because it's not fashionable to be an old person at 80 years old and still flexible and doing yoga and be able to touch your toes, doesn't mean it's not true. So that's my version of the world. Sorry, I have to clean my glasses all of a sudden. They're very, yikes. Doesn't mean it's not true. And so that's the world I choose to live in. I'm going to be healthy and take care of my health, and I'm going to be healthy of my mind, and I'm going to be healthy in my spirit, and I'm definitely going to be healthy in my soul. So I'm hoping that if you think about this, okay, I'm going to be 59 this year. Is that right? Anyway, I was born 65, so I'm going to be 59. I probably should take that date out in case somebody wants to be a thief. I will. So I'm going to be old this year, or older. And I'm going to stop saying that and be old. Because in relation to what? If I'm going to be 59 this year and I live to 120, I'm barely halfway there. 60, 60, 120. Yep, barely halfway. I just hit my midlife stride. So I have a lot to do still. And who knows where any of this stuff is going to go. I know that I'm excited by it, and I like the journaling and t-shirts and all the fun stuff. I just ordered a t-shirt the other day. It has Tree of Life on it. I love it. I would have wore it today, except that it's in the wash already because I got it, washed it, wore it. So I'm going to order more of those. I want to give some of those away. And my giving is my act of service, my seva, my being kind and generous, and wanting somebody else to be as delighted by being alive as I am some days. I'm not delighted every day, but most days I'm pretty delighted. And I don't know where any of this is going to go. And there's a little bit of trepidation there, I have to say. A little bit. Because when you reveal secrets, dark forces can come at you. And writing is a secret. And a lot of people don't even know how to write script now, which I find shocking. I find it shocking. And it's just as shocking as the fact that I can type without looking at my fingers, because I took typing in high school. That was my favorite class. And I didn't know why I was doing it, because I was never going to be a secretary. But that was my only goal. Like, I could be a secretary or wife, basically, because home ec was like, And now I cook everything. My husband cooks more than I do, but yeah, we cook a lot. We cook every meal. We don't ever buy packaged food, and we haven't eaten out in years and years. So we don't want other people putting their frequency into our food. That's how I say it. He'd say it differently. And he's writing. That is a miracle. That is a total miracle. He's writing every day. He started writing more than I do. So I was like, what the heck? What's going on in my world? And it's transformed him. And that's part of why I'm doing this. Oh, so here's two other things I want to say, because I know this is going on. I don't really care anymore. But I would like to do a live at some point. I think that would be fun. We could see how that goes. That'd be very organic and a little bit scary. It's so funny. It's just so funny, the process that this has all gone through, and how I used to be so insecure about it, and like, because I judge myself so harshly. Anyway, so I still do, but I just ignore it now. So here's what I was going to say. Right now, there's a couple things I want you to hear. If you're interested in writing, digging through all the writing books, digging through who writes is very difficult. And over the years, I've cultivated a list of books that help writing. So if I just say to you, I'm going to talk about this more in the future, but if I just say to you, you should journal every day. That's quite ambiguous and amorphous. And what does that look like? Like, where do you even begin? I'm going to work on that, because I want to help you do that. Taking notes, I think, is a great way to start. Just take notes, which, I don't even know what I was thinking right there. I was thinking about my notes, and then I thought about something else. Anyway, so taking notes is a really good way to start. But here are two books that I find super helpful. The one I'm listening to right now is free on YouTube, and it's called Believing in Magic. Very helpful. Very helpful. And I could see the influence of that in a variety of different other books. Og Mandino, Richard Bach, if you've read any of their works. Let me think. Think and Grow Rich. That probably, I think, came after this book, Believing in Magic. And I could even hear the influences of all these works in my own work, which I found really interesting. I was like, wow, I totally forgot that I wrote this, but that was a great example. So in one of my books, I give you real world examples of people who dreamed things into being. They went to bed and they woke up and had the answer. And dreaming, to me, is very underrated. And that is one of the ways you can start journaling, is just create a dream journal and just write your dreams down first thing in the morning. And then the other one is Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg. Oh, Believing in Magic is Claude and Bristol. So I really try to give, when I quote somebody or I give a book, I try to give the author, it's just, I feel like it's a due respect. They took the time to write the book, and I know how hard that is. Anyway, and Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg, super helpful book, little tiny book, not very big, about that big. And so I had the great book purge a few years ago. Never again. I will never do that again because I'm rebuying books. Some books I've bought 2-3 times because I've done this a couple times in my life. So I don't know if you can see this room. You can't tell how big it is, but I had at one point in a house I owned had a room of a library this big. It was my own private library, and all the books, yeah. And my life has changed many times because I adapt, I guess, you know, and I have a journey that I don't quite understand yet. Probably like all you. Anyway, so I got rid of those. I think it was like 200 books I had at that time. Makes me sad. But quite necessary sometimes because moving books costs money, and when you're poor and you don't have the money to move the books or move them yourself, or you have time constraint, you have to do something. And I've had money and I've had no money. So you can term that however you want. And so certain obligations had to be met and just can't. And then I did a great book purge a couple years ago before I moved to the state. And I thought it was the ideal thing because my house was too small and I was getting cluttered, and I don't like clutter, and I just needed more space, and I didn't think it through very well. And I was hasty. So now I have to buy the books again. Unfortunate. Kind of. Books are receptacles of knowledge and containers of insight and amazing transformational portals. And I disregarded that and said, oh, I've read it, I probably won't ever read it. And oddly now, I'm rereading books that I haven't read. And that turn of the spiral, the Fibonacci that we continue to speed bump over, I'm paying attention. So I'm rereading, so my fiction world, which I'm reading right now, is Naomi Novik, and she wrote Temeraire. That's how you pronounce it, which in my mind I call it Temeraire because it's nicer. I wish she'd called the dragon Temeraire in the first place, but Temeraire, in my mind, I don't like it, so I don't say it that way. But she's brilliant. She really is a smart cookie. I've listened to her interviews, and she's given me insight to other authors that I now will dig into and read, which I didn't even know about. And Jane Austen, and I like that era too. I've read all her works, and so I have the collection of the Dragon series and some of her other books. I think the Dragon series is her best by far, and I'll tell you why. It's not just fiction, and I'm going to give you a little snippet of this in case you're interested, because I want you to pay attention to these videos so that you know that I'm not holding anything back. I don't construct it in the way everybody else constructs their videos. So anyway, so this Temeraire series, Her Majesty's Dragon, I think, is the first one, but there's like 3 in the first part, and then there's 3 more, 4 more, something like that. I have them all on my shelf, and I just started reading them again. I haven't read them for like 4 years, so they're nice and fresh, and I'm a different person. But the interesting thing about it is not just fiction. It's about Napoleonic wars that are fought with an aerial corps of dragons. So there's a whole lot of thinking process that had to go into that. But what I like about it is that there's this very intimate and quite profound relationship between the protagonist, Lawrence, who's the captain of Temeraire, the black dragon from China, and in a way that never gets talked about as a deep and profound relationship. And It has nothing to do with romance, although it's quite a romantic book. Not in the traditional way, not in male-female culminations. And it shows me insight that other beings on this planet can see deep and profound relationships in their world and reflected into their world that aren't traditionally what we want to couch or put in a little box. So the insight, the duty, the very large concepts get addressed without an agenda, with a sort of an open question. And that, to me, is intriguing and fascinating. And if you want to listen to the book, oh, what is his last name? I'm thinking, his first name's Nick. I'll put the link in the description, because he read His Majesty's Dragon, I think, is the first book, so I'm not sure if I'm correct on that. He read that book online for free on YouTube, which I was like, yes, please, I'll take another cup of that. And he chose not to continue reading it, but I sort of encouraged him. That and Charlie Holmberg, hands down, one of my favorite authors. Oddly, my world is so weird. I'm not even kidding. And I'm not going to say who all this is, otherwise I'll be name dropping, and I don't like that. Sometimes I do it, and I don't mean to sound that way. I just am so delighted at the coincidences in my life that I forget to edit that part out. So there's an author that I love. Won't mention any names. There's somebody who's written feedback for that author. So I just started reading Charlie Holmberg, by the way, a couple years ago. Moved here. Didn't know anybody here. And then I meet in person somebody who's commented on one of my favorite authors in their books. I'm like, no way. Like, first of all, that person the someone who commented, I met them and I didn't connect the dots, but they helped me move out of my first house. Because we moved here and we had a lease for a house for a year, and then they decided they wanted to do something different with it, and so we moved again. And then one of my new friends, obviously new because I'd only been here a year, she put the call out to some of her friends, and my neighborhood showed up. Like, all these people that I'd met, Halloween party, going to church, whatever, and I'm not a church person really, but I went to go with my other friend to meet other people and just to see what they're up to. And we had mostly gotten moved anyway, but we had like furniture and stuff left in the house. And the day we were going to move, there were more trucks than we needed. There were more flatbeds than we needed, more people than we needed, and we moved in an hour and a half, our entire house. Well, not all the boxes, I already moved those, but like the heavy furniture, in an hour and a half. And one of the people that helped me move was this person who commented on my favorite author. Not even kidding. Didn't know for like, thanked them, happy it all happened. I thanked everybody. That Christmas I went and gave everybody soap and gifts and things like that, because I was really grateful that they helped me move, because I know moving's hard, and I've always been that person that'll help other people move, and rarely people ever show up to help me move. So that was a really big deal. Changed my world. I was like, what? This is crazy. I'm so grateful. I want to cry, right? And then, so some time goes by, I meet some more people, and then I start talking about this, that, and the other, and finally all the wires connect, and I go, oh, what in the living heck? This person who I respect and has read their book, this other person commented and was in my house, helped me move. What? The weirdness. I mean, I couldn't make this up. The weirdness, so weird. So then I read his work. He's a great and famous author, by the way. Great and famous. Walk. So anyway, writing, reading. You can't be a writer without reading. You should read. I think you should read. It's hard to do the shoulds, but I read every day, every single day, most of my life, unless I was in the really, really bad place, which I've been a couple times in my life. But writing and reading has been the two things that have kept me sane in this insane world, this run by the clown posse, and I am working at making that insane realm obsolete in my realm. Yes, I'm very proud of myself by that thought process. So weird. It's so weird. And I don't know how much this will go up, but thank you for being here. So very much thank you for being here. And, you know, let me know what you think. I know I've said a lot of stuff. Comment, don't comment, it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep doing it, it doesn't matter. The reason that I have so big of a time in between posting and not posting is because I want that genuine and sincere connection. And I don't even visit my friends every day. So you're my friends now, and so I don't visit you every day. But I'll always continue to visit. So leave a comment. I'll figure out how to draw names so that I can give I could find the home for this set of books, because this is my last set, and it will be a minute before I get more books restocked. It's quite an endeavor to get physical books restocked, but the ebooks are always available. And so yeah, I'll figure out how to do that, but I will be given journals. So if you leave a comment and just say, yes, count me into the entry for a journal, I'd be happy to throw your name in the pool of journals, and then I'll, you know, or say, yes, I put my name in enter my name for the set and the journals, or enter my name for a journal or just a set, or whatever you want to do, and then I'll pick through, you know. And I'm fair, I'm super fair, rational, and I try to be just. And so I'll make the appropriate hats, and you can just trust me to draw the name, and then we'll see and announce it and do all that. Plus, oh, here I have one more thought. Can you believe it? I still have so much to talk about. I was going to give some incense away, but packaging those incense has been very tricky. I'm going to have to think it out, but if you have any thoughts on that, toss them in the comments and let me know what you think. Or if I've sparked any interest in any of this stuff, that would be great. I would be grateful for that. And thanks for being here, and thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. And I think that's it. I think I should go now. We're done. I feel like it's the end of our time for today. And thank Herb as our special guest. And so weird, I know. Have a great day. And I hope you see a little bit of magic today. Okay, bye.